during World War II. Some became legends, others were disasters, some never left the drawing board. This is every German tank that saw service between 1939 and 1945. Starting with light tanks and early Panzers. Panzer I, this tiny machine was never meant for real combat. It carried 2 machine guns and armor so thin a rifle round could punch through at close range. Music. The training tank became a frontline fighter in Poland and France because Germany had nothing else ready. It was fast, it was available, it was also a death trap against anything heavier than an armored car. By 1941, most surviving Panzer Is were pulled back and converted into tank destroyers or ammunition carriers. The chassis lived on. The tank itself was obsolete. Panzer II. Germany needed firepower, so engineers mounted a 20mm autocannon on a slightly bigger chassis. Music. The Panzer II became the backbone of the early Blitzkrieg, shredding soft targets and infantry. Against French and British tanks, it struggled badly. The gun couldn't penetrate heavy armor, the crew was cramped, reliability was decent, which is why the chassis became the foundation for the Vespe and Marder tank destroyers. The problem is clear. It was never designed to fight real tanks. By 1942, it was a reconnaissance vehicle at best, still useful, still outclassed, moving on to captured and repurposed designs. Panzer 35T. After Czechoslovakia fell, Germany seized hundreds of Škoda-built light tanks. The 35T was well-made, reliable, and actually combat-ready. Music. It featured a 37mm gun and a pneumatic transmission system that worked surprisingly well in the field. German crews liked it more than their own Panzer I and II models. It fought in Poland, France, and the opening stages of Barbarossa. The problem was parts. When something broke, replacements were hard to find. By 1942, most were gone. The design was solid. The logistics weren't. Panzer 38T. This Czech tank was even better than the 35T. Germany loved it so much they kept it in production under occupation. Music. The 38T used a reliable engine, simple layout, and a decent 37mm gun. It served throughout the early war and proved tough enough for the Eastern Front. When the tank itself became obsolete, the chassis didn't. Germany built the Hetzer, Marder III, and Grill on this platform. Thousands were produced. The tank worked. The legacy lasted longer, continuing with medium tanks. Panzer III. This was Germany's primary tank killer early in the war. It featured a 3-man turret for better crew efficiency and coordination. Music. Early versions mounted a 37mm gun, which was quickly upgraded to 50mm as Allied armor thickened. The Panzer III was reliable, well-designed, and loved by its crews. The problem was firepower. By 1942, the 50mm gun couldn't reliably penetrate Soviet T-34s or KV-1s. Germany kept upgrading it, but the hull was too small for a bigger gun. It was eventually replaced by the Panzer IV in the tank fighting role. Still, it remained in service as a command vehicle and infantry support tank until 1943. It did the job. Then, the job changed. Panzer IV, the workhorse, the only German tank to remain in continuous production from 1939 to 1945. Music. Originally designed as an infantry support vehicle with a short 75mm gun, it evolved into Germany's most versatile medium tank. When Soviet T-34s appeared, the Panzer IV was upgunned with a long-barreled 75mm capable of penetrating most Allied armor at range. It fought on every front. It was upgraded constantly. Armor was added. Engines improved. By late war, it was outclassed by Soviet heavies and American Shermans in numbers, but it remained dangerous. The chassis supported dozens of variants, including tank destroyers, self-propelled guns, and recovery vehicles. It worked from start to finish. That's rare. Now the legends. Panther. Germany built the Panther in direct response to the T-34 shock on the Eastern Front. Music. It combined sloped armor, a high-velocity 75mm gun, and decent mobility into one of the war's best medium tanks. The design was brilliant. The execution was rushed. Early Panthers suffered catastrophic engine fires, transmission failures, and final drive breakdowns. Crews had to nurse them carefully. When they worked, they were lethal. A Panther could kill a Sherman at 2,000 meters. A Sherman had to close to 500 meters to penetrate a Panther's frontal armor. Germany produced over 6,000 Panthers, but maintenance and fuel shortages limited their operational effectiveness. It was a world beater on paper, a maintenance nightmare in reality. Tiger I, the legend. Music. The Tiger entered service in late 1942 as Germany's answer to Soviet heavy armor. It mounted the legendary 88mm gun, the same weapon used in anti-aircraft and anti-tank roles. Thick, flat armor made it nearly immune to most Allied guns from the front. The problem was weight. At 54 tons it was slow, fuel-hungry, and mechanically complex. Bridges collapsed under it, engines overheated, final drives snapped. But when it worked, it dominated. A single Tiger could hold up an entire Allied column. Crews reported kill ratios of 10-to-1 or higher in favorable conditions. Only 1,347 were built. Each one required 300,000 man-hours to produce. It was a strategic waste. It was also terrifying. Tiger II, King Tiger, Germany's final answer to Allied numerical superiority, was to build an even bigger, heavier tank. Music. The King Tiger combined the Tiger's thick armor with the Panther's sloped design and mounted a more powerful 88mm gun. At 70 tons, it was nearly unstoppable from the front. It was also a logistical disaster. The weight broke roads, destroyed bridges, and drained fuel supplies faster than Germany could replace them. Mechanical breakdowns were constant. Most King Tigers were abandoned by their crews due to lack of fuel or parts, rather than enemy fire. Only 492 were built. It was the most powerful tank of the war. It was also proof that bigger isn't always better. And finally, the failures and prototypes. VK-30-1H, an early prototype that competed to become the Tiger. It featured sloped armor and a more modern layout than the final design. Music. Henschel won the contract, and the VK-30-1 was shelved. Some hulls were later converted into tank destroyers. It showed promise. It lost the competition. Panther II. Germany tried to standardize the Panther and Tiger II by creating a common chassis and parts. The Panther II project aimed for better armor and interchangeability. Music. Only one prototype hull was completed before the war ended. It was a good idea. There was no time left. Mouse. The ultimate waste of resources. This 188-ton super heavy tank was the heaviest fully enclosed armored vehicle ever built. Music. It mounted a 128mm main gun and a coaxial 75mm gun in a massive turret. Only 2 prototypes were completed. Neither saw combat. It was too slow, too heavy, and too fuel-hungry to be practical. Bridges couldn't support it. Rail cars couldn't move it. It represented Germany's late-war obsession with miracle weapons that consumed resources without delivering results. It's a museum piece. That's all it ever was. E-series prototypes. As the war collapsed, German engineers proposed a simplified, standardized tank family designated E10, E25, E50, and E75. Music. The goal was to reduce production complexity and improve battlefield performance. None entered production. The designs existed on paper and in a few incomplete prototypes. Germany ran out of time, steel, and fuel before any could be built. They might have worked. We'll never know. Which one is your favorite? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe for the next.